Hi, I'm Dr. Cass Spencer-Smith of Private Practice Ninja. Today we're going to be talking about medical legal work and how to start a medical legal practice. Medical legal work isn't just for doctors. It can be for physios and osteos too. So what are the pros and cons of medical legal work, and is it for you? Is medical legal work worth the money? It seems like it's a nice little earner, doesn't it? But imagine that you could be somebody who's being a professional witness in a kind of no-win, no-fee court case that drags on for months and months and months, and eventually you get paid. But in the meantime, you've invoiced somebody and there's a very, very big tax bill sitting waiting to be paid that you have no money to pay with. The other thing you need to understand about medical legal work is VAT, if you get lucky. So things we do in the healthcare sector don't tend to attract VAT, but medical legal work isn't actually about helping patients. It's about helping a court. And once we start to earn good money from a medical legal practice, for example, I think it's around £79,000 per year now, you have to become VAT registered. Where does the work come from? Well, if you work in the medical legal field, chances are your work comes from solicitors who know you, and sometimes it comes from medical legal agencies. You need to think about it in the way that you think about patients coming to find you. So once they form a good working relationship with you, they will repeatedly refer work to you, but it's going to take a bit of time for you to be found. And as well as doing the work in the medical legal sector, you also have to be prepared to market yourself. Making sure you get paid for your medical legal work. You might think that you have to wait a long time for insurers to pay you, or embassies, they're a good one, aren't they? But sometimes it can take forever for people in the legal industry and those associated with it to get around to paying you. So it's really, really important that you set up in advance your T's and C's and fees. What that might look like is you getting to be good at sending out paperwork first saying, "Oi, you've got to agree to this first before I take on any work." Otherwise, you might not ever get paid. Setting your medical legal fees. Some medical legal work is capped, and it's capped for a reason that it doesn't drag on and on. I won't go into those details. But you need to think about what your fees are going to be, and you also need to sort of state them quite clearly. Now, people who work regularly in the medical legal business are very good at doing this. They'll have a website page that says, "This is my hourly rate, this is what happens if you decide to cancel my work, this is how much notice you've got to give me, this is what happens if somebody doesn't turn up in court, etc, etc, etc." So you need to think about it in those terms. You also need to think about what sector you're working in. Is it really saturated? Or do you have a niche area that could attract a little bit more profit? Think about setting a standard rate for a typical report. So if it's a sort of injury claim and you're doing some work, chances are you'll be able to work out roughly how long it takes for you to read through notes, see the patient, examine them, produce a report. But you need to make sure you bill for all those parts, including the transcription time, time for your secretary, alterations of reports after you've read other people's reports. So what solicitors and agencies are looking for is often a sort of standard fee, but you need to make sure that you're not tied into that if it's a very complicated case. Definitely consider outsourcing your transcription to a GDPR compliant medical legal expert transcription company such as WeType, because it takes both specialities, medical and legal. Court days. These can really mess you up. What often happens? You turn up, somebody else doesn't turn up, the day is cancelled. When you're going to spend time in court, you can pretty much forget about anything else that's going to go on usefully in your day. So you need to set out in your T's and C's what's going to happen in terms of payment if you show up and no one else does. Do I have to be an expert to do medical legal work? Well, there are three kinds of medical legal witnesses, as they're called. The first is a kind of everyday Joe Bloggs, an ordinary sort of person witness. This is somebody who could have witnessed someone being bottled over the head. Then there's a professional witness, which could be an A&E doctor who sort of sutured up the head of the person who'd been bottled over the head. And then you could be an expert witness, which could be that you're a plastic surgeon who has expert experience in incised wounds. Where the differences in terms of witnesses comes into play often arises when we're talking about the difference between a personal injury claim and the difference, say, between a medical negligence claim. So personal injury claims, we've all seen them. There was a spate of whiplash claims years ago. Every Joe and his dog jumped in a car, claimed for whiplash. We've all seen it. And thankfully now some of that's gone away. But when it comes to sort of professional witnesses, you might be asked to examine somebody and write a report about it. But if you're an expert witness, the difference is you've got to be prepared to stand up in the dock and kind of give an expert opinion and give advice to the court in a way which is dispassionate. So even though you may be hired by one side and not the other, you need to sit somewhere in the middle. Expert witnesses come about through years of experience in their own field, and then they have some legal training, but it's not that difficult to become an expert witness. If you want to be a really good expert witness, you have to be able to explain complicated terms to lay people, and you need to be able to balance up what's been drawn out in terms of the data with what's understood in terms of current research, and give an opinion based on what would be acceptable in terms of regular practice. As well as that, you need to be a structured person so that when you're asked to turn around a report, you can do it in a good time. There's no point feeling rushed after the end of a day's work in a clinic, thinking you've got to hash something together because the solicitor's nagging you for it. That's not good enough. You need to structure this into your time. You've got to be prepared to wear the big pants. I work in the field of sport and exercise medicine, and I know where my field boundaries are. I would feel a bit uncomfortable these days about giving advice to somebody who is in the middle of a stroke, even though I did that when I was a junior doctor. So the boundaries of your professional practice are very important, and it can be tempting for people to step over the boundary and try and extend their area of expertise into an area they really shouldn't be talking about. Here's the sticking point. Your work will be scrutinised. It will be dragged in the court. And we've known of cases whereby people have had their reputation tumbled down because of something that happened in the medical legal world. So you need to be very comfortable about where your boundaries are and stay in them. Medicolegal training. You've got to be pretty ballsy to turn up in court without having done some medicolegal training. Thankfully, there are some great courses and people around you who can help teach you this stuff. I'm going to encourage you to look up the links about the Academy of Experts and the Experts Witness Institute. So where does the work come from? Well, I'm going to suggest that you think about applying to be on a register, and that register is with the Action Against Medical Accidents. If you want to find some medical legal agencies, you only have to do a bit of Googling. There are various ones out there, such as Doctors Chambers Limited and Premier Medical Group. And finally, marketing. You have to market your medical legal practice. That means having a professionally made website and producing a medical legal kind of CV. It's a really good idea to do this, and you can state out your T's and C's on there. And then when solicitors get to know you a little bit, they can introduce you to other people and they'll look up your website and check it out. So, is medical legal work right for you? Well, sometimes in life there are stages we go through in our clinical growth. If you're peri-retirement, lots of people decide to take it up then. It may be that you think that it would be a good fit for your family life, so you can have shorter clinic days, sneak in a little bit of report writing early on a Saturday morning when the kids are still sleeping, or sometimes we just want a break from seeing patients. I'm Dr. Cass Spencer-Smith at Private Practice Ninja, and I'll see you next time.